Here's Corin.
It'd be awesome if we can.
A trip,
I love it.
It's been a trip, yeah.
Where do we want to? Anywhere in here is great. We got some nice lighting in there. I usually set up one camera and sit next to the person. I mean, we could sit here beside each other. We'll be all right. I like it. And I can get the camera set up right here. We'll be good. And this is awesome. Fantastic. How are you, sir?
Doing just fine.
Oh, sorry for my
Long
condition. I'm getting there too. I am certainly a bit of an old timer myself. How's my head there?
Cut off a little.
It's cut off. That's okay. If it's cut off right here, we're all right.
Okay.
Because I have a fluffy tuft of hair that looks funny anyway.
It's cut off.
A life of his own too, so.
I really appreciate you letting us come into your home for a minute and get to know you. You have an absolutely beautiful home, by the way.
Thank you.
And I apparently nothing happened here in 1897, which is. I want to hear all about the nothing happened story myself. First off, my name is Corin.
Vince.
Vince, pleasure to meet you, Vince. What, is that short for Vincent or Vincente or just regular Vincent? Yeah. Cool. Where were you born?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. God, there was, I can't remember, there was some song we used to sing when I was a kid in elementary school that had Omaha in it. And, Erie Canal was my favorite song that I used to sing when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that was fun. I can't remember the lyrics anymore, but what type of environment were you born into? What type of, was it low income, middle class? Was it?
Fairly low.
Uh-huh.
My dad was a big band musician.
Really?
But,
For whom?
well, this was back in the 20s,
Okay.
30s and 40s for all kinds of different bands and did studio work and stuff, but traveled around the country. He didn't get married until he was 36. When he got married, though, he sort of didn't want to live that life anymore.
That's understandable.
That's how he ended up in Omaha. He was actually from New York and Chicago. But, and both of it, sort of funny, at this time, we're going through the COVID thing now.
Yes.
Both of his parents died in that flu epidemic in 1918.
Oh, the Spanish flu. Yeah.
A week apart.
Yeah.
He was 8 years old. And he went to an orphanage. When he was 15, he got out and went on the road in a band.
Well, that makes sense. Under those kind of tragic circumstances, when you're left up to your own devices, you really have nothing to lose but to throw your hat into the ring and get on the road.
So he did that, and then met my mom, and
I don't mean to interrupt you. I've had a party foul and left my phone buzzer on. I'm going to turn it off really quick. We won't have any more disturbances. Oh, that was you, Dave Hall. Don't you ever do that again. So,
anyway, he was playing in Omaha, met my mom, and then he went back out on the road, called her up, and said, "Come on up, let's get married." So they went to Chicago and got married.
so he took her back to
She
Chicago.
was from Omaha.
She was from Omaha, and
So
went
then they
back.
decided to go back there, and he'd get a day job. He still played a little bit in the weekends and stuff, but he didn't want to be on the road, married and having a family.
It's extremely difficult.
Right.
I can tell you that. That's how
Right.
my life has been.
Yeah.
But so your father and mother, did they stay together your whole life
Yeah.
growing up?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So my dad
fantastic.
died.
Yes. Well, I understand.
Yeah. My
Yes.
mom's still alive though. She's 96. And
Really?
probably in better shape than I am.
That's fantastic.
But,
96.
Very active.
Yeah.
Travels and everything.
What did she do for a living growing up?
Well, number of things. Second World War, she worked in a bomber plant, sort of like Rosie the Riveter kind of thing,
Part of the Yes We Can movement.
Right.
Yeah.
When we were kids, of course she was at home most of the time, but she did have a part-time job working at a store, for a while. But then she went to school after we were when my sister and I were out of school. She went to school, became a teacher. So she taught until she retired.
What grade level did she teach?
I think it was fourth.
Fourth.
It might have been more than one even, but mainly I think it was fourth grade.
Yeah.
Elementary anyway.
What was life? I mean, growing up in Omaha, what decade were you in during? Like from age 8 to say 13, 7 to 13, around there.
Well, that would have been the late 50s.
Late 50s.
So it was a pretty calm time. I was a kid, you know, I'd go on the bus, go downtown by myself, you know, and stuff. I mean, it was, you know,
it was the
pretty tame period.
Yeah, the atomic era. So when you think about what life was like, you know, back then as a kid, and if you compare it to, you know, nowadays, like how stark of a contrast is there?
Well, quite a bit, I think, because we didn't worry about much back then.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
not like now. You know, I mean, it's a lot safer.
Yeah,
We were out running around all the time. I mean, it was like, you know, no big deal.
exactly.
I mean, if I had kids now, I'd probably be a lot more protective.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah.
you know, sort of a different era. You know.
And your father, he didn't completely retire from the music business? I mean,
No,
he
he
was
sort of
always-
stayed in it for a while, and after a while, he sort of did. He got too busy,
Yeah.
but then he taught me how to play. In fact, both my parents actually taught me. So.
What was the first instrument that you learned?
Well, my mom taught me some simple stuff on the piano when I was probably 4 or somewhere in there, 3 or 4 or something like that. I still remember her doing that. And then when I think I
3
was
or 4.
I think
Wow.
when I was 5 is when my dad started teaching me the trumpet.
Oh, that's a
And I
tough one.
played it for a couple of years. Then I had to quit when I didn't have any front teeth.
Oh,
And I started up again after that, you know. And then I started putting some bands together when I was probably in 5th or 6th grade, somewhere in there. Just, you know, with some kids, you know, that
Sure.
kind of stuff. And then we played a few places.
And that was still up in the Omaha area?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of, were you doing what style of music were you,
We
were
were
you
doing
going with
like
at that time?
Dixieland and ragtime kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were all horn players.
Yeah.
I didn't play the guitar yet then. Then a little later on, there's another band where I was playing trumpet, but we had a guitar player, but we started playing a lot more rock stuff. We needed 2 guitar players, so that's when I started playing the guitar.
Like rock stuff, like original music, or were you guys playing
just cover stuff.
cover
you know.
stuff?
And then I played a polka band after that.
Polka band.
Yeah.
That's a shift.
Yeah.
That's a major shift.
Emo Sovka Orchestra. And that was sort of interesting because polka bands don't just play polkas. They play for weddings all the time, you know, so they play all kinds of music.
Oh, okay.
So I played trumpet and guitar both in it, you know. And there were some bizarre, you know, if you can imagine these big Catholic Polish weddings, you know, drunken orgies, basically. I mean, literally one of them, I remember the end of the night, they picked up, 4 guys picked up the groom, carried him out, laid him in the back seat, and then the bride drove off, you know. Bizarre wedding night.
I just wonder what the morning after was
Yeah,
like.
right.
My goodness.
And the bass player of the band was the guys in the band. They were all older guys.
Yeah.
I mean, really old. My dad had played with a drummer back like 20 years before I did, and he said it was ancient then, you know. But the bass player would get drunk every night. About halfway through the night, he'd come up, put his arm around me. Hey, Vinny, you know, you and me, we need to go to Hawaii. We'll get us some Hawaiian shirts, you know. You can play the guitar, I'll play bass. We'll have women hanging all over us. I'm like, you know, 13. You know,
Only 13.
Like, I'm going to go, you know, with this old man.
Did you go to Hawaii?
No. Are you
Oh.
kidding? First off, like, my parents would even let me. Like, would I want to? Not with him.
Probably not.
No. So I didn't.
So you were playing in bands at 13.
Yeah, somewhere in that 13, 14, something like that. We were playing a lot of weddings and clubs and stuff.
I mean, that's crazy to think of. You know, I mean, back then, I'm sure it was different, but, you know, to play in a band at this day and age at 13, you'd run into a number of different issues where you could play and how you'd have to get special permission or
Well, you
this
just
and
had to have somebody responsible for you that's over age, you know,
Okay.
over 21, you know.
What was that
I don't know
like?
how responsible they were, but they're supposed to be.
It's fascinating.
You know?
Yeah, it's fascinating to me though, because what was that for you? What was that like being 13 years old in a totally man's world that was, you know, full of musicians and all of that? I mean, how did you keep yourself grounded and centered? You know,
Well, I think part of it was I saw. Okay, when you're 13 or 15, you know, that age area,
Yeah.
a couple of years I did that. If you're sober and the rest of them are all wiped out, you know, you sort of look like, you know, do I really want to be like that? You know, so that was sort of my thought. you know.
exactly.
But
But you had that foresight, though. You had the intellectual capacity
Yeah, I
to take a
guess.
step back
I don't
and
know whether I'm intellectual.
view it from the outside.
You know, but
Yeah.
you're just looking at it from that point of view, you know. So then I started a rock band a couple of years later called The Wonders back in the 60s. And that was a lot of fun. Just a bunch of guys, you know, a bunch of teenage guys, you know, playing top 40, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was during the Beach Boys and the Beatles era, you know, so that's what kind of stuff we were playing. But,
Did you guys do some original albums and everything? Did you get
yeah, we
released?
did. We did some recording. Yeah, but didn't go real far. But you know,
Still.
got on the radio. It was cool hearing ourselves in the radio, though. It was pretty cool.
Absolutely.
I remember the very first time I was driving down 30th Street in Omaha. I heard one of our songs on the radio. You know, it was pretty exciting.
Oh,
I was like
wild.
17 or something, you know.
At 17,
Yeah.
nonetheless.
So that was pretty neat. And then we had some bizarre experiences. Then later on, we had a guy who would fly us to our gigs, you know, and stuff. And very first time, never been on an airplane in my life. Very first time, we're in Iowa, and we take off. You know, it wasn't too bad. But about halfway back, we're going back to Omaha. He doesn't know where we are. I don't know if the guy even made flight plan. Half the time we were lost, you know. But literally, he's looking down there. I think it was Highway 6 we were following. He's trying to follow.
Oh, no.
I think that's Highway 6 down there. Here's a town up ahead, so we fly up there. We're flying around the water tower to read the water tower to see where we are. You know, so those are bizarre experiences.
And how old were you then when that happened? That was.
I was a teenager.
Yeah,
Probably, by that time, I was probably 18 or somewhere in there.
So you had your parents were pretty loose on around the cuff for allowing you to go and do this kind of stuff.
My mom probably wouldn't have been if she would
I
have known
see.
some of those guys were. But I think my dad was probably a little bit more liberal than my mom. But you know, but I guess they trusted me. You know, they figured I never really got in much trouble.
Right.
Other than the dress code in school and things like that. You know?
Yeah, which
I was
was
a
strict
rebel.
back then.
Yeah, they were pretty strict, and I was always getting in trouble for my hair being too long, or
Now, by too long, how long was too long? Like an inch and a half or a quarter
Well,
inch
actually,
too
in
long?
school, it wasn't even. Yeah, that period. Now later on, it was pretty long, but in that period, it was probably just below my ears a little bit.
And that was too long.
Oh yeah. In fact, I would wet it all down and grease it down in the morning, try to keep it from falling down.
But then you're a greaser.
Yeah, but that was okay. I just didn't have to cut it. You know, I could wash it out later. But one day, I didn't have anything to grease it down with, so I wet it. It was all looking good until it dried out. By second period, it's all falling down. The principal took me to the barber shop.
They had a barbershop in the school?
No.
Oh, okay.
He actually took me out of school, down the street to the barber shop, paid for my haircut.
Wow.
Then a little later on, the next time I had to get a haircut, the band director actually wrote a letter of introduction to his barber for me, gave it to me in an envelope. This is the introduce Vince Russo. I'd like to see his hair sort of cut to the general conformity of his head. You know?
What?
It
So
was a different era.
it totally was, and that's what interests me too. Is even my generation growing up, you know, in our years in the 70s, early 80s, the stark difference between then and now is it's pretty dramatic. And consistently I get this, you know, we felt like we had more freedom then, and there was just so much, you know, it was less constriction and you know, all this stuff, and I have to say I feel like it's true, you know, so, I mean, it feels like you had an entire life by the time you were 17. You know, it seems like by getting out of high school, what was left for you at that point to accomplish? Like, where were you headed?
I kept playing, you know, and then I did get a day job for a couple of years and decided that wasn't my thing, so went back to playing. And then I was playing in a sort of a comedy music kind of thing.
Yeah.
Me and another guy. And
like a Weird Al Yankovic before Weird Al Yankovic?
It was more along the lines of the Smothers Brothers, maybe.
Oh, I love
We did
that.
music and comedy, and of course we were funniest to look at. I weighed like 100 pounds. This guy was like, I think he's 6'6" or something like that. Weighed 300 and some pounds. So
you were the quintessential Laurel and Hardy.
yeah, right. I mean, we are total opposites, and we did a lot of serious music, you know, but also a lot of comedy skits and stuff like that, you know. It's sort of funny because we'd do, of course, again, that was a different era too, but we would do all this sort of double entendre kind of smut kind of stuff, you know, during the night. Everybody's drinking, partying, you know.
Right.
But we would also sing Amazing Grace, you know. And another thing, at the end of the night, we would usually end up with How Great Thou Art. Now everybody's partying, drinking, and everything all night. We played How Great. Everybody shut up, you know, and people had the tears in their eyes, you know, at the end of the night.
Really?
And the guy really sang it great. He had a sort of an operatic kind of voice, you know. It was beautiful when he sang it, but it was sort of different. I don't think he could do that now. You know, it was a whole different era. This was in clubs we were doing this. You know?
Yeah. What kind of clubs? Like what was it more like bar type atmospheres, or were they?
Well, it was both. Some of them were just. I mean, they were nice places. I mean, they were sort of high class kind of places, I guess. But one of them was like a riverboat. It really wasn't in the river. It was like next to the river. But it was it had a big ballroom in it, you know, and stuff. It had a restaurant, you know, a bar, the whole bit, you know. But,
so when you got out of high school, you messed around trying to do some other jobs, but the music industry was your thing.
Yeah, it's always, I did that up until, I was 37, I guess, when I retired.
Wow, that's young.
And,
that's young.
I opened up a music store, too, during that time. I always wanted, back when I was a teenager, the drummer of the Wonders and he always wanted to have a really cool drum store. I always wanted to have a cool guitar store.
Right.
Because the music stores back then were usually piano stores and they just sold other stuff, you know. And so anyway, I ended up doing it. Opened up a guitar store.
What was it called?
Specialized. It's called Russo's Guitar Center.
Russo's.
But it was in Omaha. And I opened it up in, I think it was 72, I think.
That's a great time to open it up, actually. I mean, the music scene was just going off in the late 60s, early 70s. A lot of people getting into it.
And I was still playing during that. I was running the store during the day, playing every night. And I was also backing up a lot of the stars that came into Omaha, too. So doing some of that kind of stuff.
So some of the bigger acts would come through town without full bands and need people to play with them?
Right.
That's a great gig, but it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. And I met some great people, you know.
Bet.
Some I didn't like too, but both, you know.
Who was one of the coolest that you met at the time?
Actually, probably the JJ's here, by the way. This is sort of weird or whatever, but probably the nicest person I ever worked with, and actually it was her and her daughter both, was Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher. Carrie was like 16 then, I think, somewhere in there. It was like it was in the early 70s. And but Debbie was she had a great show for one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the band was like incredible. And really big, huge stage, you know, and she came down out of the ceiling, you know, and all these lights that said Debbie, and she's sitting in one of the B's, you know, it was really cool. But she was just the nicest person I ever worked with, I can say that.
Really?
I never say a bad thing about her.
Yeah.
Very, always thanked everybody at the end of the night. When we were done, she threw a big party, paid for everything, you know, I mean, just really treated us.
She knew how to do it classy.
Great lady.
And well, that being one of the better ones, I mean, you don't have to name names or whatever you don't want to, but what was one of the worst experiences?
Well, there was one country star that I backed up that the whole time I worked with him, first off, you get like a day rehearsal before you get the music, you know, and then you have a day where you rehearse and go through everything. He had a stand-in for the rehearsals. And basically when we did the shows, he came in, sang his part, and left. I never said one word. He never said one word to us. I never said one word to him in the whole time. I just thought he was very cold.
There's an actor that I worked with on CSI Miami that's like that.
Then there were a few people I backed up in the 60s that were just so stoned they couldn't hardly sing their own songs.
Like who? Anybody that was...
yeah, there was a group called the Castaways that did a song called Liar, Liar.
Sure, Castaways, sure.
And what was the other one? Something about leaving on a train at midnight or something like that. But I mean, they were horrible. I didn't know what I could say.
What? So did you owning the music store, did that allow you some financial freedom to not have to stress too much about music gigs and everything else? Was it bringing in a decent amount?
Was it a burden? Yeah, I saved a lot of money. I had a friend who was a broker, so we used to send him a check every Monday.
Oh, that's so smart.
You know, and he did well for us, and And because I made pretty good money playing too. Part of that time also, I was doing a duo with my wife, not this wife, but a different one.
Uh-huh.
But so we made pretty good money out playing too. Just two of us, and we made as much money as a 4 or 5 piece band.
Really?
So we did pretty good, you know.
Well, that's
The
interesting.
store went well, you know. I sold it in 1985, moved to Arkansas, and just hibernated for a couple of years. And
Where'd you end up in Arkansas
up in
first?
Mountain View.
Okay.
And actually, I built a house up there. Bought some land,
Mhm.
cut all the trees out, and started building. And then I played with some local bands, you know, sort of regional, I guess, just within a couple 100 miles, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And I did that up until, until we moved to Hot Springs, which was 2012.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also a music director at church up there. And I moved down here to have actually, I can tell you the whole story, I guess. There's more to it. Okay, when I moved Mountain View, lived up there for 9 years, then I got
Special message.
divorced. But anyway, after 9 years, I got divorced, and of course, that wasn't quite in my retirement plan either.
Right.
So had to go back to work. So
I had that happen.
yeah, right. You've been there then, okay. But then I had to do something to make a living. Well, I had sort of, I had kept it. I sort of disappeared as far as the music business is concerned.
Right.
With some local people, you know. So I hadn't kept in contact with anybody or anything. So I didn't want to leave Arkansas really because I have kids here. Diana, my wife here, has kids here, and I was always messing around with old cars. It was sort of a hobby, you know. So I thought, well, I'll just open up a restoration shop, you know. So I did that, and we ran it for 18 years.
And that was local here?
It was
this
up
area?
in Mountain View area.
Oh, in the Mountain View area. Okay.
Then we moved down here to work at a church. That lasted a year.
What were you doing at a church there?
I was music director.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And so I did that for a year, and then ended up opening another restoration and hot rod shop down here, which we're still doing. So
Really?
yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, how did you end up working as a music director for a church? Were you already involved in
Yeah, I
church?
started playing electric guitar in church in 1970.
Oh, right on. Okay.
With a guy by the name of Don Morris. He was actually the preacher, but he was also a musician.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of clicked, and we started doing some music with the kids. We did his program, basically a cantata that he wrote, and we traveled around in a bus with these bunch of teenagers doing the show.
Yeah.
And then we recorded it and published it, and it's been done all over the world. And then he ended up going on to writing all kinds of cantatas and all kinds of Christian music and stuff. You know?
Right.
But that's sort of how I got started in, doing that.
Were your parents involved in church at all growing
Yeah.
up? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I grew up in church.
Oh, you did. Okay.
I wouldn't say I was quite living the Christian life the whole time.
Right, yeah, of course, I
I
understand.
was there.
Yeah.
I might have been out, partying Saturday night, but I was
Sure.
always went to church next morning to play.
Well, when I'm listening to your story, the one thing that because my mom was in the music business when I was growing up, but she was a graphic artist.
Oh, yeah?
So she did band posters
Oh, yeah?
and stuff like that. But we lived in Arkansas. We grew up with some bands there, local bands there that we knew. It was Cherry and the Hot House Tomato Boys and Black Oak, Arkansas, and some other.
Actually, Black Oak used to buy some of their stuff from me, as a matter of fact.
Okay, yeah, great.
In fact, there's a guy who came into my store one time. Now my mind went blanket. I've known his name all these years, and it went. But anyway,
That's all right. Nobody's going to know even what Black
Right.
Oak, Arkansas is for the most part, except for maybe one or two people who are listening to
but
this.
he came into my store on a Friday. Literally was in there a half a day playing his guitar. Through all these different amps and everything, and he bought it. Scott Lewis was his name. I think he was a roadie for him, something like that. But anyway, Monday he brings the guitar back, wants to return it. So I said, "Well, is there a problem with it? Do I need to adjust the neck or what? No, I don't like anything about it. Now he played it for half a day. So I thought, he probably needed a guitar for the weekend. I said, no problem. So I gave his money back and everything. Best thing I ever did, though, for years afterwards, I'd have people come in for different bands, Scott Lewis said this is the only place to go.
Really?
Right.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And,
so he did do
it
your
just
favor.
shows that, when you're in business, don't make anybody mad, it'll pay off. You may lose this sale here, but they'll be speaking well of you in the future. So I mean, literally for years after that, I had people come in. Bands that come in and buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Because of that one guy that I made happy.
One guy. It's amazing.
So it's sort of interesting.
Well, I'm seeing a through line to your life right now. That's really to me it's extraordinary because knowing a number of people in the music industry from my generation that I grew up with, and then knowing the experience growing up with my mom and her, the majority of the musicians and rockers and all of that, they didn't. Their arc was. And very, very few ever, I think, were really able, very few, unless their band was so popular that it outlasted the time period.
Right.
Most of those were like they get 5 years of popularity
Right.
and they're gone or whatever.
Right.
But the ability that you seem to have had to have orchestrated such a twisting and weaving way through life without getting. It seems like you didn't get too caught up in the party scene of the music business.
No, I never did.
Right? No. That's what I'm curious about. Like, what was it that pushed you away from that, or was there anything specific?
I always wanted to have just sort of a normal home life. I mean, I didn't always. I can't say that I did a real good job of it all the time,
right, of course.
but I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I mean, I always wanted to have a pretty normal, like the kind of life I grew up having. I mean, sort of like that's how my dad got out of the music business because he wanted his family to have a normal, family life. So, and I always sort of waned that too.
Well,
I sort of did both.
Well, it says a lot. It says a lot about your
Yeah.
father as well, being willing to see into the future enough to know that his lifestyle, as much as he might have loved it or as much as it might have been a burden, whatever it is, he could see enough to say, if I continue this way, none of this will work out.
Right.
No family will
Right.
work out. This will be, so that's he put you guys first.
Right.
Is what that seems to be. That being said, I understand that you were thinking about, okay, I'd like my family, I don't want that and all, but as a teenager growing up for that, so you saw, okay, look at the way these guys behave when they're wasted, I'm not interested in that. I would like to have a family. It's interesting because there had to be something fundamental as a really young person that you must have locked into, whether aware of it or not.
Well,
that
my
kept
mom
you
was
grounded.
pretty strict.
Oh, was she? She wouldn't take nothing.
I remember when I don't know how old I was, but maybe 10 or so. I had this little girlfriend, probably a couple blocks away. We found some cigarettes in the street, cigarette butts in the street one time, and lit them up. Of course, one of the kids squealed on us. Talk about big trouble. I mean, I had it pounding on my head. You will not be smoking.
How old were you then?
I don't know, probably 10 or something. I don't know exactly, but I mean, pretty young, But I never did smoke. I just thought it was a waste of money for one thing, I guess.
Yes.
But it never was my thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, do you think that your life as an artist and a musician, how has that been? Just for you, for your family, for your kids. Has there been enough stability there to keep everything level?
Well, fairly. I mean, of course, when you go through divorces, that's always.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But my oldest son, plays keyboards and plays them pretty well. The rest of them have musical ability. They just don't really do a whole lot of it. My second son's actually a really good singer, but he pretty much just wants to sing karaoke.
Well,
let's go to the bar and sing some karaoke. That's my second son.
It's
have a few beers. And,
yeah, exactly.
Do some karaoke. But he actually has a good voice.
Yeah, I can't carry a tune in a bucket myself. But what was the in terms of if you look at your life as an arc, what was the moment what was the very top moment of your experience just as an artist, as a musician and an artist? Like, was there a peak that you reached at a certain point?
Oh, well, I don't know. There's been multiple ones.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't just like one. Say, like when I was young, as a teenager, playing with a bunch of your friends in a rock band and going out and just having a good time. We were young.
That was a peak. Yeah.
That was a peak. I mean,
Yeah.
we were young, having a great time.
Yeah.
It was just fun. And you're making money too. So
Absolutely.
It's great. But also, I did a single act for a long time. I really enjoyed that. When I was working, doing the comedy and music thing, I did that for about 4 years, I think, and that was really a great experience.
Yeah.
We did really well and had a lot of fun with it.
Well, I'm also curious how you segued into the hot rod thing. I mean, I know a lot of musicians and people, who are in the arts and entertainment world, they gravitate towards hot rods,
They just have somebody else do it for them.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, most of my music friends, probably couldn't change the oil in their car.
Yeah.
It's sort of weird, but I guess I'm sort of blessed to have, like, my dad's side of the family is artistic,
Mm-hmm.
And my mom's side of the family, they're all builders. I mean, and it's sort of funny because I didn't hang around with them that much. Cause, like, I had an uncle in California that restored antique cars, but how often did I see him? I mean, once every 10 years.
Right.
But then I had another one that was always building, always remodeling his house. Every time we go there, the kitchen would be on the opposite end of the house or something. You couldn't even recognize the house, He was always building. So I had all these guys who were building stuff on her side of the family, but I really, didn't see much of them.
Yeah.
I guess it's just in your blood, or inherited or something. But
Yeah.
so from her side of the family, I sort of got that mechanical aptitude, I guess. And from my dad, I got the artistic thing, I guess. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a great combination.
It's sort of unusual,
Right.
It
is a good combination though when you apply an artistic approach to the rehabilitation or the reconstruction of hot rods. I would imagine that it would be a lot of fun because you can think outside the box a little bit on the restoration.
Yeah.
What's one of the coolest cars that you've gotten to restore?
Well, the coolest. Of course, I like some of the older stuff, really from like the 30s.
Me too.
In fact, my own car is a 37 Chevy.
Right.
But,
2-door or 4-door?
Two-door.
Okay.
Well, no, this one's a 4-door.
Okay.
I had a 38. That was a 2-door. This one's a 4-door. But it's a hot rod, though. I mean, it's got heated seats, and
you jazzed it up.
Yeah. 350 V8.
Wow.
Cruise control, all the new stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's in pieces at the moment. In fact, it's in my shop right now. It's not done yet. Working on it right now. Trying to, but you don't get paid to work on your own car, so it's sort of gets shoved aside sometimes. And we're real busy right now. But
well, that's a transition though. That's quite a transition to go from from music into the hot rodding thing. And I can understand how that would make sense because being having gone from being tight knit in a community of musicians and then extracting yourself from it. But so when you moved to Arkansas, that's when you started getting more into the hot rodding and
I was already into it.
Oh, you were already
into
it.
I was playing too.
Okay.
During the day, that's what I was doing. I was fooling with my cars.
Really?
At night I was playing. In the daytime I was messing with my cars.
Do you think that the hobby or the interest in working on cars, that added passion also kept you maybe a little bit out of the danger zone of
music? I guess I never really thought about it. I haven't thought about it that much, but
well, I just picture.
I've always liked. Even when I was a kid, I was always making hot rod models and stuff.
Right.
That kind of stuff and building things. A few times I got in trouble for it. But
like what?
Well, at the time I was in a band and I wanted a strobe light. So I'm thinking, how can I make a mechanical strobe light? Well, you can put a spotlight in a box, and you can have a fan motor with a disc on it with a hole in the disc. So every time the hole goes by the light, it flashes. See, it's just like a regular strobe light. So I'm looking around the house. Here's a fan right here. I could make one out of this. So my parents come home, wondering where their fan is. That was not one of my best.
Did it work though?
It worked.
Well, there
great.
you go.
Yeah,
it was worth it.
The fan was worthless. Yeah, they weren't too happy with me that day.
I honestly, I'm really impressed with how even keeled it seems like you were able to remain in a heavily artistically influenced environment, I know that, that there's a lot of looseness. That's what I grew up. I grew up as an actor from age 12 on, and I know that, the liberal side of the arts and entertainment industry serves a purpose, but it also serves a negative purpose too in some respects. And so I applaud you for being able to slither your way through that without too much damage.
Yeah, I guess the upbringing I had, I guess. And of course, my dad always sort of warned me about, the music
The
business.
pitfalls.
My parents didn't really want me to go into the music business.
Right.
Yeah, you got to just teach, be a music teacher. I can't do music, but I wanted to play. That was in my heart, So.
Well, I love it.
But
Well,
my dad knew what it was like. I mean, he even told me stories about back in the 30s and stuff, about guys smoking dope, and stuff,
Well, that was when, that was
I knew about
the
that
jazz
stuff.
era.
None of my friends even knew about that kind of stuff when I was young. I mean,
Really?
but
Did you ever mention it?
nah, it didn't really come up. I mean, when I grew up, drugs really weren't happening yet.
Right.
It was really toward the middle of the late 60s. I graduated in 65, and there were no drugs in school or anything. My sister graduated in 67, and everything sort of changed by then.
It's like the most dangerous drug was your mom's diet pills.
Right?
It's like-
Right. My mom didn't need them, she was thin.
Well, that leading up to this point, the one thing that I think would be important to end off with, based on what I'm understanding about your character arc, would be, some advice you might have to younger individuals who are getting into the arts and entertainment, especially the music business and all of that, and how to successfully navigate through those potential pitfalls and everything based on your own experience. How you did it.
I'm not sure how I did it. I don't know.
Right?
I just
That's why I'm asking. I want you to pick I want you to pick your brain and see, does it tie back to, what all does it tie back to? You know what I mean?
Well, as far as it just goes back to the way my parents raised me, I guess, too.
Yeah.
I mean, just as far as, I had for a musician, I had a fairly normal childhood, even though, I played with my dad sometimes. I was playing in a youth symphony when I was 11, so I mean, my life was a little different, and all I cared about was music.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in 4th grade getting in trouble because I was writing band arrangements in class, I was actually taking my staff paper to school and writing out, I'd be listening to records and writing out all the parts.
That's not a bad thing to get in trouble for.
No, well, teacher thought it was.
Of course.
But I still had a pretty balanced childhood. I mean, we spent a lot of time camping and doing stuff with our, family stuff,
Yeah.
And I tried to do the same thing with my kids too, even when I was divorced, that when we went on trips, my kids went with us, and stuff.
Sure.
Tried to spend as much family time as we can together.
Well, that's absolutely critical. I mean, I agree with you. It's been tough for myself, having kids and growing up in the film business and traveling all over the place and trying to find some kind of balance. Because at a certain point, I would start feeling really guilty. I'm like, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this to provide?
Right.
Because I love what I do, but I was away so much, it became very difficult on all the relationships with my kids and ex-wife and anyone else that I was trying to be in a relationship with. None of it ever worked out because I would have to go, sorry, I got a job, I got to go.
Right.
And, I think that I probably could have found a better balance earlier on that could have served me, like I can see how it served you. But now in life, are you, do you feel a completion? Do you feel like a full circle? Are you still enthusiastic about the things that you're doing, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, restoring cars is a little harder to do. I'm going to be 73 in a couple of weeks. So, a little rougher. I'd like to get more help, or I could take it a little bit more easy, But I don't play as much as I'd like to. I've never gotten much into the local music scene here.
Right.
I play at church, but that's not enough really to satisfy my
Yeah.
You play like 4 songs a week. That's not enough to really fulfill me. You know?
But it
Plus,
does.
I do miss playing a lot of pop stuff.
I
You
bet.
know, I just miss doing a lot of that kind of stuff. You know?
Do you talk to any of? Do you ever catch up with any of the guys from back in the day, or is it?
No, well, a few. I mean, on Facebook, a bunch of them found me on Facebook. So now I sort of do. You know,
Yeah.
but they're all up in most of them are up in Omaha, so you know I don't really see them. You know.
Man, I'm really impressed by. I'm impressed by your life myself personally. Being able to avoid the unnecessary pitfalls of the arts and entertainment business. You know,
And I've had my ups and downs. Now, of course, Diana, my current wife, has been a good influence. She's kept me out of trouble too. So.
That's fantastic.
She's a really strong Christian. Back in our early days, there were quite a few discussions,
Right?
Disagreements. But then I started learning a bit more. Yeah, but, guess she was right.
So, do you think, on that note, do you think that there is a higher purpose for us as individuals? Is there a higher purpose? Do you think for?
Well, I don't know your meaning of higher purpose. I guess I'm not sure what you're saying.
Well, what I mean by that is for instance, a higher purpose like okay, yes, I'm doing all of this work that I need to survive, but I know that if I'm not kind and courteous and thoughtful to other people, I need to keep a higher purpose about life, even though I have frustrations and things like that. Like, or a higher purpose, like some people's higher purpose might be to spread some type of truth or theory or whatever. It's like,
actually, this shirt right here now says "Live Out Loud."
Live out loud.
Now, this shirt is actually from a band I've been playing in called Teen Revolution. I play for teenagers. It's a Christian, pretty rocked out, kind of band.
Yeah.
But Live Out Loud is talking about live out loud about don't be afraid to talk about your Christianity. Now, a lot of people, they go to church, but they're quiet about it the rest of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you're supposed to be spreading God's word. You're supposed to be out there, not keeping quiet about it. Basically, that's what the shirt's all about. Live out loud.
Live out loud.
Yeah, don't be quiet about it.
I love it. And that's the higher purpose that I was getting to. Thank you
Right.
so much, sir.
But hey, man.
I love it.
Good talking to you.
Fantastic. Great to talk to you. Live out loud. Let's remember that. Live out loud. Don't be afraid to share your truth.
And where we came from